Hello, welcome to another episode of Her Head in Films. I'm Caitlin and I'm your host. On this podcast, I share my thoughts and feelings about the films I watch. They tend to be art house and world cinema. What makes this podcast unique is that I weave together my life experiences with a personal and emotional discussion of film. I explore the impact that cinema has on me and why I connect so deeply to it. As I like to say, my head isn't in the clouds, my head is in films. If the podcast resonates with you and you want to help it thrive, Patreon is where I'm building a more connected space for listeners, offering bonus episodes, extra posts, and a direct way to show support for the work I'm doing here. If you want to be part of that community, join me at patreon.com/herheadinfilmspodcast. And as always, leaving a review or rating or helping spread the word is appreciated. The link to my Patreon is in the show notes. On today's episode, I'm talking about William Wyler's 1949 film, The Heiress. Olivia de Havilland plays Catherine Sloper, a shy and sheltered woman living with her cold father in Washington Square, New York in the mid-1800s. When she meets an attractive and alluring man played by Montgomery Clift, she falls passionately in love for the first time, but their relationship will force her to confront painful truths about love and desire. I talk about how the film explores heartbreak and transformation, and how it charts a woman's devastating but powerful journey from innocence to experience, from illusion to reality, and toward a deeper understanding of herself. There are spoilers in this episode. This is a very powerful film for me in my life. I first saw it in 2019 before I went through certain experiences. So, rewatching it almost 7 years later in 2026, I find that it was just as powerful as the first time I saw it, and it has grown in intensity for me. I want to be honest that some of what I'm going to talk about in this episode will be emotional and it might be raw. I had a very intense reaction to the film. I was crying during a lot of scenes because I deeply connect to and identify with Catherine Sloper. There are many things about her that mirror my own life, and I'm going to be digging into that as this episode goes on. I quite like William Wyler. I've seen several of his films, and I think The Heiress is my favorite that I have seen so far. I also love his adaptation of Wuthering Heights, starring Laurence Olivier and Merle Oberon. I've thought about doing an episode about that film because I love the Bronte sisters. I love Emily Bronte. And I have a very vivid memory of watching that film for the first time. I was a teenager and I watched it on Turner Classic Movies one night by myself, and I have never forgotten it. And it made me fall in love with Laurence Olivier, and I was just amazed by that film. But I have not watched it in a very, very long time. So I'm a fan of William Wyler. And as much as I love his version of Wuthering Heights, I think The Heiress is definitely my favorite film by him. First, I'm going to just give some information about the making of the film. I'm not going to go too deeply into that. And then I'm going to dive right into the film itself. At its heart, I see this film as one about profound transformation, and a transformation that happens through pain, wisdom that comes through suffering. But it is a wisdom that must be found. And I think that there are lessons in life that we have to learn for ourselves. That no matter what other people tell us, and I think love is the realm where this happens, love, desire, romance, it must be experienced for ourselves in order for us to learn certain lessons. Right before I started to record this episode, I came across a clip from a really interesting interview with Toni Morrison. I think I'm probably going to try to go find the full interview. But she talked about when she was teaching and what she would tell her students. And she said, don't settle for happiness. Happiness is not enough. I'm paraphrasing some of what she said. Life can't just be about what makes you feel good. She says it must be about the acquisition of knowledge and wisdom. She says that in her books, by the end of her novels, that is what people have found. They have learned something about life, learned something about themselves, and it's important and it matters. And I thought that was such a exquisite quote from her, that life is not about what makes you feel good. It's about the acquisition of knowledge. And what does knowledge do? It transforms us. This is a film about a woman losing her illusions. It is a woman who has stripped away fantasy. She has to look at life and look at men and look at all kinds of things, and she has to look at the reality and the truth, and she has to live in truth. And I'm someone who, for a very long time, lived in my dreams, lived in my dream world. And I had my own Morris Townsend, in a way, that I met in 2020 when I went through a very devastating experience of unrequited love. I've talked in depth about it in another episode about Fassbinder's The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant, but I will refer to the experience in this episode. I had my own Morris, in a way. It was so painful. It was one of the most painful experiences of my life. And I have been through a lot. I have lost both of my parents. I sat by my mother as she died last year. And when this man didn't love me back, it broke something inside me when I went through my experience of unrequited love. But it also woke me up, and it stripped me of illusions that I don't know if they were serving me. And I am wiser now. I am a different woman than I was in 2019 when I watched this film. Because when I watched this film the first time, I had not met a Morris. I had not fallen deeply in love with somebody who couldn't give that back to me. But I have now. And I'm a different woman because of it. It woke me up out of sleepwalking, perhaps. And I used to be somebody who was in the dreams and the fantasies, and I didn't know how to face life. I'm 36 years old, and I still don't know if I can face life, but I know that it's important that I do. I know that it's very important to live in truth, to live in reality, even when it's painful. And that's what I see in Catherine. I see a lot of things in Catherine, and I'll share all that as I go through this film. Fundamentally, she's a woman who goes through a metamorphosis, and it comes through terrible suffering, but she is awake. Sometimes you have to touch the hot stove. Sometimes you have to go through the pain. We go on this journey with her. Olivia de Havilland takes us on this journey that this woman goes through, from a naive and innocent woman to one who is quite powerful and strong. She belongs to herself at the end of this film. She does not belong to her father. She does not belong to Morris. She belongs to herself. And I had to go through something a little bit similar through the man that I met, through having love withheld from me that I had always ached for and desperately wanted. And it was denied me. It still denied me. And for better or worse, that experience changed me. Is there a hardness in me? Is there a bitterness? Maybe. I won't say that it's all great. And maybe there's a hardness in Catherine too. The cruelty that Aunt Lavinia talks about at the end of the film. But I am wiser, and I am more protective of my heart, and I value myself more than I did before. I value my love, and I don't want to just give it to anybody. I see Catherine's act at the end of that film as one in which she is sovereign, and she honors herself and respects herself enough to walk away from someone who cannot love her, and she does not settle. like Toni Morrison says. She could have settled for what made her feel good. She could have settled for a fantasy, but she chooses transformation, even though it's painful, even though it's hard. And I think that is a very important aspect of this film, is that transformation that she undergoes, that metamorphosis, a woman going from one form to another. I've always been fascinated by myths where women shapeshift and change. Daphne is a really great example where she turns into a laurel tree, but there's others out there, isn't there? We go through experiences that fundamentally change who we are. We have to decide if we will stay in the dream world, if we will stay in the fantasy, or if we will wake up to reality and we will stand in truth. And it's one of the hardest things that I've had to do in my life, is to face life itself, to face reality, and to change, to let myself change. I can't stay the little girl forever. And there's this part of me, I think, that always wanted to like live in my girlhood, live in my childhood, because I lost my father as a teenager and I have not had a lot of romantic experience. I feel like in some ways I stayed infantile or something, or I stayed in a childlike kind of haze or something. Even though I'm a 36-year-old woman, I feel like a child still in a lot of ways. And it has been so hard for me because I am a dreamy person. Yeah, I love art and literature and I like being in the dream worlds and all of that. And those are beautiful. They're beautiful to move into, and then you have to move out of them. You can't live in them forever. And that has been the hardest, one of the hardest things for me, is to live in reality, to be in real embodied life and not my head in the clouds, right? Which is where the podcast name even comes from, is that I was always this dreamy, ethereal, had my head in the clouds type of girl. And I haven't known how to be in the world. I haven't known how to be in reality. Through my own painful experiences, I've had to. I've had to stand in truth, and there is a wisdom that has come through the pain. It was necessary. Even when I was in it, it was so deeply painful. It took me years to get past it. I don't know if I fully will ever recover from it, but I see it as it had to happen so that I could change. I could learn about myself and about life, like Toni Morrison says. The thing that would have felt good is if this person had loved me back. The thing that might feel good for Catherine is to live in her fantasy that Morris loves her when he doesn't, but she chooses to change. She chooses knowledge, and knowledge can come with suffering. When we wake up to the world and we wake up to something that we don't want to face, that can be very painful, can't it? I see it as a journey of self actualization in a lot of ways with this film. So, very briefly, I just wanted to talk about some things with the making of the film. So, our cast is Olivia de Havilland as Catherine Sloper, and she was around 33 years old when she made this film. Montgomery Clift as Morris Townsend, and at times he's called Mr. Townsend in the film. I'm just going to call him Morris. We have Ralph Richardson as Dr. Sloper, and I will call him either her father or Dr. Sloper in my episode. And we have Miriam Hopkins as Aunt Lavinia. So that's our cast. So the film is inspired by the Henry James novel Washington Square. The film is an adaptation, though, of a stage play that was also based on Washington Square by Henry James. The film is actually more true to the Broadway play than it is to the novel. William Wyler made sure to stick to the play, and the play was written by Ruth and Augustus Gotts. It was also called The Heiress. Olivia de Havilland saw this Broadway show, and she approached William Wyler about adapting it. She was really interested in roles like this that would give her more range and psychological depth. And she was coming out of a really great run in her career. She had been in The Snake Pit, And then she won an Oscar as well for To Each His Own. That was what she was coming out of when she made The Heiress. And eventually, The Heiress would lead to a Golden Globe for her and her second Oscar. And this is certainly one of my favorite female performances. I think that Olivia de Havilland's acting is superb. She takes us on a journey with Catherine. Like I said, from the naive, innocent girl to a very wise woman. Like I said, Wyler really stayed true to the play itself. I have not read the novel by Henry James, but he definitely stayed very true to the stage play. The only thing is that Paramount, who produced the film, they wanted to make sure that Montgomery Clift didn't come off as a villain in this film. And that is why there is some ambiguity around the intentions and the motivations of Morris Townsend. I don't know other people's experience of the film when they watch it for the first time, but when I watched it in 2019, I remember having some uncertainty about, is Morris a good or bad person? There are times throughout the film where we're kind of given alternative intentions that he might have, right? He is not shown as some mustache twirling evil villain. He is shown in a way that it's not black and white. And he does come off, because Montgomery Clift is such a great actor, and I think he was perfectly cast in this film, because he is so attractive and charming and alluring. I think that also softens the character, where you give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, oh, maybe he is a good guy, or maybe he's just lost. Maybe he's just drifting. Maybe he's not intentionally trying to hurt Catherine, because even Aunt Lavinia brings up things throughout the film after he leaves Catherine, and later on when he circles back. Aunt Lavinia's like, oh, well, maybe he didn't want you to lose your inheritance. So at times his actions are construed as, oh, maybe he's being selfless, or maybe he's being thoughtful, or I just remember not being sure for a lot of the film, is this a good guy or is this a bad guy? Maybe there are things that we don't know. Maybe there are reasons why he didn't show up. And I think that that is just a testament to how charismatic Montgomery Clift is. It's like, you don't want to think that he's this bad, terrible guy, right? And they said that some of the viewers of the film sent in fan mail saying that they wanted, Morris and Catherine to run away together. They really wanted there to be a happy ending to the film because they loved Montgomery so much, I'm sure. But with my second viewing, now that I'm older and I've had my own experiences with men, and I've had my own my own awakening, it was like really clear to me that this was a scumbag. And that he was using Catherine, and that he wanted her money, and he's certainly not a selfless person. He blows through his own money, his own inheritance, or some money that he gets. He doesn't help his sister. This is not someone who's thinking about Catherine and how his actions affect her. And it's very clear that he wants the house, he wants the money, he wants the luxury that would come with being with Catherine. But it's just interesting to note that I do think there's some ambiguity, and William Wyler wanted that in the film. He actually took out some lines that made it more clear what Morris's intentions were. He wanted there to be some of that suspense and ambiguity. And I think it works well for the film because men like Morris don't always come off bad at first. Men who are manipulative or two-faced, they can come off very attractive and alluring. And I think you need that in the film because it makes sense why Catherine falls for him, why she trusts him, why she believes that he cares about her. If we right off the bat thought that he was this terrible person, I just don't know if it would work as well. I think the film does a really brilliant a really brilliant job of making you wonder, is this like, what's this guy's intentions? But with the second viewing, knowing what I know about the film and just my own changes as a woman, I guess, to me, it's very clear that he is using her. And it's interesting to note that this film is part of the National Film Registry. So that's like a really great honor. So now I'm going to go through the film and talk about different things and share my thoughts and feelings about it. Like I said, when I watched it the second time, 7 years after my first watch, I was very emotional, and I didn't expect to be as weepy as I was, but there were things about the film that just hit me in a very deep way. Something that hit me is, particularly at the beginning of the film, is how naive and sensitive and lovely Catherine is. She loves embroidery. She doesn't even wanna go out. She doesn't wanna go to, like, any parties or anything like that because she wants to stay at home and do her embroidery. There's something very, like, fragile about her and sweet. Yeah, she's awkward and she doesn't really know how to act in social situations. We see that at the engagement party for her cousin and when she tries to dance and different stuff like that. But I find that endearing about her, that she isn't a perfect dancer. She's very good-hearted, but she also comes off quite sheltered. This is not a woman who is worldly necessarily. You can tell she doesn't have a lot of experience with men or anything like that. So even though Olivia de Havilland was around 33, and obviously this is a grown woman, and you can tell that, there's something about Catherine at the beginning of the film that's kind of childlike or a little bit juvenile, or maybe a better way to describe it is emotionally underdeveloped, perhaps. She just doesn't seem like she's had a lot of experience. She doesn't have those social graces. And I can relate to that. I mean, I've always struggled in social situations. I've had social anxiety and things like that. I wouldn't say that I'm the life of the party. I'm somebody who has always been very invisible in the world and not really noticed by other people or valued. And I could relate to this sense that she's a misfit. She's an outsider. She doesn't know the lines. She doesn't know the rules. She doesn't know how to play the game, right? She's very authentic. But we live in a world where, in social situations, in order for you to navigate them, you do have to be a bit artificial. You do have to act in a certain way. You have to know the right lines and the right moves and all of that. And Catherine lacks that. There's something unpolished about her and a bit raw and rough around the edges. They give Olivia de Havilland just very simple clothing, simple hair. She's not wearing a lot of makeup. Olivia de Havilland was a beautiful actress, and they just made her a bit more plain, right? They just sort of downplayed her beauty because normally she's very beautiful and attractive, but you can tell that she doesn't fit in and she's not accepted. You can tell her father has some disdain for her, compares her to her mother. Another important part of the story is that she doesn't have her mother at all. And it's implied that the mother may have died giving birth to Catherine. And so Dr. Sloper resents her and he compares her to his late wife, and of course, Catherine never lives up to that, and she's never going to. She didn't ask to be compared to her dead mother. He has decided to hold her to that standard for some reason. He is not able to love her. And a big part of this film, when I talk about her transformation, when I talk about her acquisition of knowledge, in the words of Toni Morrison, and the wisdom that she finds, it's not just Morris, it's her father, right? This is a woman finding out essentially that her father does not love her. She really has to free herself from two men in the film, obviously. She is a woman who is cut down by other people, but particularly she is cut down by men. And I think that if you're a woman, particularly if you don't fit beauty standards in some way, you will know that experience. you will know that you are not wanted by men, that they do not seek you out, that they do not see you, and that they want to cut you down and they want to diminish you. And that's been my experience in my life, that men have continuously diminished me to the point where I've had to stay away from them. That's what Catherine pretty much does. She doesn't have a lot of experience with men, but the little experience that she has, like with her father, is not positive. And even at the engagement party, this young man dances with her and then just leaves her. He says he's going to go get her something to drink and he never comes back. And you can tell what that rejection does to her. This is really a film about a woman cut down by men, as I said, but it shows the consequences of that for a woman. It shows the consequences and what it does to your soul to be a woman who is not loved by the men in her life, who is not wanted, who is not desired, who is not adored and protected, a woman who is excluded. And I've lived that. There are many women who live that. She feels unattractive, undesirable, unimportant, uninteresting. That is how she's treated by other people. And you can tell the way that she shrinks herself and how small she feels in the world at the beginning of the film. That she's someone who is not valued, that the world does not embrace her. It does not turn toward her. She doesn't attract people. She doesn't have that about her. She's rejected and she's made to feel less than. And you see what that does to her. That's why I saw so much of myself in her, is that I understand how being rejected by people, how it limits your life. It limits the possibilities for who you can be. So you're not really outgoing. You're not really gregarious, right? Because you feel like nobody's interested in what you have to say. I can relate to her being an outsider and a misfit and feeling thrown away by the world, perhaps. I know what it's like to feel unseen, to feel invisible and undesirable, to not have people reach for you, to not have people respond to you in a kind and warm manner. I understand that, and I'm 36 years old, and I wish that I could tell you that it's changed. And yet I'm 36, and at times I feel like I am still a 14 or 15-year-old girl who didn't have many friends, who sat by herself in the cafeteria at school. And actually, a time came when it was so unbearable to me to sit in the cafeteria alone that I would go to the library during lunch hour because I couldn't bear it. And I wish I could say at 36, oh, I've turned it around. Right? I didn't go to prom. I never had a boyfriend. I never dated. I so want to change that story and that narrative. I think I've always wanted to. I've always wanted to show people, like, you were wrong about me. I am beautiful. I am worthy. And I think that was part of when I had my own unrequited experience with the man that I met in 2020. It's like, this is again why I understand Catherine, because that's what happens with Morris, is that you want to prove everybody wrong. All the people that think you're nothing, all the people who think that you are small and unimportant and ugly and worthless. My grandfather treated me badly. Men in my family treated me badly. The only man who loved me was my father, and he died when I was 16. So I lost that. The rest of my life, I've had no men who really loved and cared about me. And when I met this particular man in my 30s, when I was 31, I wanted him to make up for all that. I wanted him to prove everybody wrong. Like, no, I'm not small. I'm not ugly. I'm not unworthy. I'm not undesirable. And that was what made it so devastating when he didn't change that story for me. And the thing is like with Catherine, her story doesn't change either, or Morris can't change her story. And I guess that's what I've realized through this film as well. A man can't change the story. You are the author of your own story, your own life. You have to be the one to change it. I have to be the one to change it. So if the world tells me I'm ugly and unattractive and uninteresting and unworthy and unlovable, which is what I've been told since the time I was a little girl, and I am still told that to this day, then I have to fight back against that. I have to resist it. I have to refuse to buy or believe that narrative about myself. And what I see at the end of the film is a refusal on the part of Catherine as well. And I see her stepping into a self authorship. I will write my own story, and these men will not be part of the story, right? Isn't that what she's doing in some way? It's a refusal, but it takes time for her to get there, and it will take time for every woman to get there. You don't have to be a spinster to relate to Catherine. You don't have to have had my life either to relate to Catherine. Every woman has a moment or has multiple moments throughout her life where she realizes she's being cut down. She's being diminished. She's not being respected, or she is believing a story about herself and she has to rewrite it. She has to be the author of her own life. And maybe that's cliche to say that, but I think it's the truth. Her father's not going to love her. Morris is not going to love her. So what do you do when you can't find the love that you want and that you need? That's part of the devastation of the film, is her coming to consciousness about the men in her life, that, and also about, can I find the love that I need? Because Morris is not offering it and her father didn't offer it. Will you be able to find that love from other people outside of yourself in the world where you live? And I've often asked myself this: will I ever be loved the way that I need to be loved? Will this world give that love to me? And I don't know if it will. I don't know if it's possible. So, what do I do instead? How do I live my life with self respect, with dignity? Because I see Catherine choosing dignity as well. How do I live it with sovereignty, with sacredness, with knowing the sacredness of myself, of knowing I am fully lovable and I am fully enough as I am in this moment, and that nobody gets to say that I am not enough, and no man gets to say that I am undesirable and unlovable. No man gets to have that power over me. And Catherine refuses to let these men have power over her. Her father dies, and she refuses to marry Morris and rejects him. It is stunning to watch a woman go from what she was at the beginning of this film, naive and innocent and bumbling and awkward, and to watch her ascend that staircase. That is a profound metamorphosis, and it is hard won. She goes from being small and unseen to standing tall and no longer shrinking herself. But she has to go through the pain. And when she meets Morris at that engagement party, I continue to be fascinated by the way that our lives collide with other people's lives. It is an endlessly fascinating thing to me, because I've often stopped and I've thought, what if I didn't meet that man in 2020? Why did he come into my life? How did he find me? How did our paths intersect? Who would I be if I had never met him? And so when Catherine and Morris meet at that engagement party, she has no idea the way that he will change her life. I think what's hard about it is that he seems different from the other men. He brings her the drink, he dances with her, and Montgomery is like so brilliant in this role. So charismatic, so alluring, and you really trust him. You believe that maybe he's genuinely interested in her. Maybe he really likes her. He's so understanding and so patient with her, right? You want it to work out for Catherine. You feel for her. You want her to have a different story. We always want to root for the underdog. And that's what Catherine is. We want to believe that she's found her love story, that she's not going to be humiliated and cut down anymore. And like I said, I like that the film kind of destabilizes us a little bit in terms of, is he genuine or not, throughout a lot of the film, particularly with the first watch. With the second watch, I think he's a slime ball. But with the first watch, you don't fully know. But I think this works well because men who are like Morris, men who can be manipulative, or maybe they're using you, trying to get something from you, they can start out supportive and nice and kind and curious about you. We watch her get pulled in by it. We see why he would be irresistible to her, why he would be seductive, why she would, let's be honest, lose her mind over this man. And hey, I don't judge it because I lived it. I lost my mind over a man. I never thought I would, and then I did. So I never judge anybody when it comes to matters of the heart now. It feels very mutual. He does a great job at making her feel that it's mutual. He doesn't treat her like her father does. He doesn't say the things to her that her father says to her. He comes off very kind, and that is what hooks you. That is what confuses you, even. And something that I hate is when people say, well, men only want one thing. People say that men just want sex. And I hate when people say that because it can give some women a sense of safety. For instance, if you're not seen as attractive or if you don't fit beauty standards, it can give you a false sense of security and safety that men will just leave you alone because you can't offer them sex or something like that. The thing is from my own experience, that is not the only thing that a man wants. And it is not the only thing that a man can take from a woman. Sex is not the only thing. A man can want attention, validation, access to you, access to something that you have. When it comes to Catherine, it's her money and her inheritance. A man may want emotional labor or emotional support. There are many things that a man can take from you that have nothing to do with your body or how you look and have nothing to do with sex. And I think it's important to be aware of that. Catherine isn't aware of it. Catherine doesn't know that. It doesn't even occur to Catherine that this man would be doing all this, would be going to all of this effort just to get her money. It doesn't even occur to her to use that she is being used because she doesn't operate that way. She's not transactional and she doesn't use other people. But there are lots of reasons why men can seek you out. And there are many things that a man can take from you, even if he never touches your body, even if you never have sex with him, and even if you never have a romantic connection with him. There are other things that can be taken from you that are also precious to you, like your time, your care, your attention. So it's important that the film makes him not so much a mustache twirling villain, as I said earlier, but makes him, I think, more complex and more believable. That's how he gets access to her, is being very nice and charming. And we see why she falls for him and why she loses her mind. He can treat her as a human being, or seem to treat her as a human being, and also be using her. Both of those things can exist at the same time. A man can be really kind and sweet, and he can also hurt you. That's just the truth. And she trusts that it's real and that it's genuine because her own intentions are so good and so pure. She just can't even fathom that somebody would take advantage of her. And that's a beautiful thing about Catherine. I will say this. I know that it's maybe not safe to be naive and to be innocent and to be soft-hearted in the world today, or to be kind-hearted, but it is a beautiful thing to be that way, isn't it? We don't want to believe that people are going to use us or hurt us or manipulate us, right? It's sad that we have to lose our illusions. It doesn't mean we have to become hardened or, really bitter and ugly and resentful and all of that. But I mean, even for myself, it's like, how do I find that balance? How do I be wise and discerning and protective of myself without becoming very hard and cynical and jaded? Because I want to hold on to my softness. I want to hold on to my tenderness and my kind heart. I even want to hold on to my dreaminess There are parts of me that I don't want the world to take away from me, or my experiences with men to take away from me. And I do try to hold on to some of that, but I do have to be protective of myself as well. And it's just so heartbreaking to watch that she finally, when she meets Morris, she finally believes that it's her time, that she's not the outsider anymore, that she gets to dance with a man. She gets to be the heroine of her own story. She gets to get married instead of watching from the sidelines as other women get to have those things. And I think that's what can be so intoxicating about when you get in something that's maybe unrequited, or you get in something where you want to believe a person loves you or cares about you when actually they're using you. She wants to have that love story, to be courted, to have the experiences that other women get to experience instead of just doing her embroidery alone at the house, right? She gets to be part of a new narrative, like I said earlier. It's like something's finally happening for her. That's part of what makes it so heartbreaking, is that it's this chance for her to step out of that old narrative and to feel loved, to feel chosen. But the problem is that everything happens too quickly. That also struck me as I watched it the second time. I was like, oh, this is happening too fast. There's no way this man fell in love with her in a few days, right? It's so clear that he is coming on too strong, that all of this is unfolding way too quickly. And her father, Dr. Sloper, clocks it. Dr. Sloper does his due diligence. He looks into Morris and finds out more about him, and he has his suspicions. I don't believe that he's trying to protect Catherine necessarily. I don't think it comes from a loving place necessarily. I think it comes from wanting to protect his money and not wanting his fortune to go to a slime ball, right? Who's going to blow through it and waste it. So Dr. Sloper is very wise about Morris, but he has ulterior motives for that. It's not coming out of the goodness of his heart or because of his love for Catherine. It's more of a desire to protect his own money. And I got to thinking about the title of the film when it comes to Catherine's relationship to her father. And it's obviously called The Heiress, so it's about an inheritance. But what is the inheritance in this film? I don't think the inheritance is just the money. I think it's also about what do we inherit from our family and our parents. And I think for Catherine, she inherits a lot of pain from her father. Her life is painful also in that she doesn't have her mother. So there's an abandonment there. And even though it's implied that her mother died in childbirth, her mother didn't choose to abandon her. But I lost a parent early in my teens, as I've shared. It registers as abandonment, even if it's not intentional. It's an absence as well. So she's lived with the absence of her mother and the absence of that love that she could have received. And her father never really loves her. And so she inherits pain, and she inherits a story about herself from her father, that she's less than, that she doesn't compare to her mother, that she's not interesting, that she's just good at embroidery, that somebody like Morris would never want her. She inherits all of that from her father. It's one of the things that he passes down to her, is that pain. The ideas that we have about ourselves at times are not our own, and they don't come from us. They can often come from other people in our lives and in our family, in our immediate family, right? So it's not just money that she gets from him. She inherits an entire story about herself and about her worth. And that is what I think pushes her into the arms of Morris. Now that Morris has come along, he will love her. He will care about her. He will choose her above all else and out of all the women that he could have. And so that's why she falls into it so quickly. They've barely known each other that long, and she wants to get engaged and she wants to be with him. And when I had my own experience of unrequited love, it was very quick. It was like I've described it as a lightning bolt where I met this man and I immediately felt very intensely about him. I didn't know much about him at first. I eventually obviously did get to know him, but it was immediate for me. And I'd never experienced anything like that. I was 31 years old and I had never felt anything like that. That lightning bolt that hit me. And I think that's what happens with Catherine is she's so desperate to escape that story that her father has passed down to her and she wants a different life. Because I think also when we get into these unrequited, unreciprocated dynamics, it's about that person. I don't want to say that it's not, it certainly is, but it's also about who we imagine we could be with them, a different life, a hope for our lives, a different version of ourselves that we could be by their side. And if they love us and approve of us, right? You live your whole life with a certain script and a certain story about yourself and your life. And then something comes along and breaks through, and you're presented with this alternative story about yourself and about what could happen for you. And I feel like that's partly what Morris represents. And that's what makes him so powerful. It's what makes men like this so powerful for, I guess, women like me, is that it's the dream. It's the dream of who else I could be if he loved me. So instead of her being the spinster with her embroidery, living with her father on Washington Square, she can leave that. She can walk out of that house. She can leave her father's house and she can have her own life with a husband because it's the 1850s and that's what we've been presented with. That's how you make your own life, is that you couple up with someone, you pair up, you get a man. I don't know if it's changed that much. There is still immense social pressure placed on women, particularly when you get into your 30s, as I am, that this is the path. You find a husband, you find a partner, you have a child, you settle down. That is the path. She rejects that path at the end of the film, and that's also what made it so powerful for me, is because I'm also rejecting that path. I am creating another path for myself. Like I said, I have to be the author of my own life. And I don't yet know what that looks like. But Morris represents another life for her. But the problem is that she wants a new life or a different life with a man who cannot be trusted and a man who is not good for her and is not good. We learn things about Morris throughout the film, right? He doesn't have a job. He blew through an inheritance. He really didn't do anything to try to take care of his sister who raised him. And so Dr. Sloper sees Morris as a fortune hunter. That's what he calls him. Because Catherine is going to inherit 20,000 from Dr. Sloper, she already gets $10,000 a year from her mother. That's her allowance. But Dr. Sloper can refuse to give her that inheritance if he doesn't agree with who she marries. And it's another way that Dr. Sloper exerts control over Catherine, is through money. I will control what you get to live on after I die. It's another way that he can control her, even beyond the grave. Dr. Sloper knows that Morris is using her, that he only wants her money. You know, Aunt Lavinia and another woman, there's a scene where they're begging him to not take away Catherine's happiness, that this could kill her. This is what makes her happy. And then they bring up that maybe Morris has good intentions. You don't really know his intentions. Maybe he'll make her happy. Maybe he will love her. They're begging him not to take it away from Catherine because she's waited her whole life to be seen and loved and cared about. This is her chance at happiness. Morris is her chance at something better. So instead, he compromises and he wants them to wait when it comes to the engagement, postpone the engagement for 6 months. And we'll go to Europe, and he proposes that, right? And something that occurred to me as I was watching the film is that I think every woman has to go through this kind of disillusionment. And I think it's almost a rite of passage for a lot of women to have a bad relationship or to be treated terribly by a man. It's something that every woman has to learn in her own time and in her own way. I'm a 36-year-old woman. If I told a 20-year-old young woman or a 22-year-old woman, right, don't date and stay away from men because I've had my own bad experiences and I know a lot of other women who have had their bad experiences. The thing is that a lot of women in their 30s and 40s are recovering from the trauma that men caused them in their 20s, or at any age a man can cause you trauma. I'm going down a path of not dating, not doing any of that. I'm choosing more of a spinster path. I've never dated. I have never been in a relationship. Like I said earlier, men have not shown interest in me. I just had this experience of this unrequited love, and that was the thing that happened to me. But since then, it's not like I've had other opportunities or things have gone in the direction of me finding any kind of love with a man. And for me, I think that's the path I want to stick to, is staying away from it and not really going near that and not dealing with men. So if I told a woman who's 25, don't date, just stay away from it, do you really think that's reasonable? Do you think a 25-year-old woman is going to not date? Yeah, there are some who are going to stay away from it. Chances are a lot of younger women are going to believe that they're the exception, that they will be the exception, that they will find the knight in shining armor, they will find the needle in the haystack, they will find the good guy, and they are going to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort doing that. And they are going to have to go through some difficult experiences that may open their eyes and may bring wisdom. They are going to have to touch the hot stove. Nobody can touch it for you. And so I think every woman has her rite of passage. And usually it tends to be a painful experience with a man. And sometimes women go through it earlier. I never dated in my teens and 20s. So maybe I would have been wiser earlier, right? I didn't get this wisdom till I was 31, until I was in my 30s. But there are women who get disillusioned by men earlier in life. But as I was watching the film, I thought about, like, every woman has a rite of passage, usually around romance. There tends to be this time where you go from being a girl to being a woman. And how do we mark that? Usually the threshold is falling in love. It's first love. It's the first relationship with a man. We tend to define women in that way. That's when you've become a woman, is when you're with a man. So what does that mean for the spinster? So, what is the spinster's rite of passage? And I think for women like me who have never had romantic experience, that sometimes the rite of passage for us is unrequited love. It's heartbreak from a man, but not through being in a relationship or having sex with a man, but being rejected by one, not getting the man, not being loved by a man. And I feel like that happened to me with my experience of unrequited love, that was, in a way, I crossed a threshold. And that was like me going through a kind of rite of passage. Is that my awakening, it didn't come through falling in love with someone who fell in love with me. It came through the opposite. It came through the suffering and the heartache and the heartbreak. That's how, I guess, in a way, I lost my innocence. I didn't become a woman through having sex with a man, right? Like, we tend to define that, like, it's very misogynistic, of like, oh, losing your virginity and stuff like that. But if you're a spinster and you've never lost your virginity or whatever, then what is the rite of passage? And for me, it was the heartbreak. It was the unrequited love. And I think that's what Catherine's going through to a certain extent. This is her rite of passage, is this man not loving her. That is what leads to her wisdom, her growth, really moving into womanhood, moving into adulthood, I would say. And it comes with the loss of illusions. And sometimes that rite of passage, it's not just not being loved, but it's also realizing you are not loved in the way that you had hoped. and maybe you never will be. I mean, maybe that's some of the bleakness of the film. Morris doesn't love her. Will she ever find that love? And she may not. I think it should be, I really get frustrated with people who say, oh, you'll find somebody, or there's somebody for everybody, or it'll happen one day. I am 36 years old and it hasn't happened. No, I don't know the future, but I know my life. I know how I've been treated. I think it's okay to say it may not happen. I'm not seeking it out. I'm not looking for it. I would not shut it out if it organically happened in a safe and mutual way. But for a lot of women, it doesn't happen, and you don't meet somebody. And it should be okay to say that maybe it won't happen. And maybe you live in a world where you can't find the love that you're searching for. Because Catherine was so innocent, so good hearted, and she deserved better. She should not have been used. She should not have had to go through what she went through with Morris. She should have been able to be in a mutual loving relationship with a man, and that is not what she got. There was nothing wrong with her, and she deserved to be loved, but that is not what life hands us at times. But this is her rite of passage, and she has to go through it. It's what opens her eyes, and it is brutal, and there's a grieving process when you stop and you think, oh, maybe I'm not going to find the love that I seek. Maybe I'm not going to find the love that I ache for. Maybe there's not somebody out there who's going to be able to love me for all that I am. I don't know. It's unanswered. As of right now, it is unanswered. I know that the only people who truly ever loved me were my mother and father. That's it. And they're gone. So I do not know if I will ever know love like that again or anything close to it. And it's best to just grieve that and acknowledge it and face reality about it. She should not have been used like a tool or an object. As I watched the film, I also felt very angry for her. I felt angry for the way that her father treats her. I felt angry for what Morris does when he abandons her, when he doesn't show up, because I understand what it is like to feel that way, to feel thrown away or discarded or treated poorly. So I felt very emotional and weepy as I was rewatching it. And then I also felt angry for her that she was fragile and innocent and naive. And I didn't want her to be hurt. I didn't want her to have to go through that heartbreak. I didn't want her to be treated like an object by this man. I wanted him to love her and do right by her. She's just like a baby bird. Like, that's the thing. Like, Olivia de Havilland brings that innocence and brings that fragility to the performance. She's just like this little bird, this little baby bird that I want to protect from this ugly, ugly man who just wants to use her for her money. It is so degrading, right? It's so gross, but you can't protect her forever. You can't protect her from her father either. And we have that big explosive moment when she finally sees the truth of what he thinks about her. When he basically says that why would Morris want to be with her? There are many more women with more beauty and charm, and the only thing that she has going for her is her money. And she is so shocked by it, that scene where he finally expresses his true vitriol and disdain for her. And she calls him out on it. You know, what a cruel thing to say to me. That's essentially what she says. He is cruel. And even though I didn't have that with my father was not mean and cruel toward me. My mother had a very negative relationship with her father. And I watched my grandfather. I don't even really like to call him that. I'm estranged from him. I'm estranged from all of my family on both sides. He was very cruel toward my mother and cruel toward me, very hurtful toward me. And in Dr. Sloper, that's who I saw. I saw my grandfather. I saw a man who cuts women down and hurts women and doesn't care. A cruel, cold, heartless man. And I've been near that coldness, and it will shake you to the core when you are in the presence of it. And you can tell how she's physically affected by it, by seeing the truth of what her father truly feels about her. In a way, I'm reminded of Autumn Sonata by Ingmar Bergman. And that is such a devastating film as well, about a mother who really cannot love her daughter. And I think I said in my episode about that film that we have people in our lives and our families who lack the capacity to love us in the way that we need to be loved. And that is the tragedy of Catherine's life, is that she is deprived of the love that she needs. She has a cruel father, and he just deflates her and cuts her down. And after he leaves the room and she's left in her chair, it's like watching a flower wilt in real time. I feel like Olivia de Havilland's performance is very embodied. It's very visceral. But that's what she captures in that moment, in her voluminous dress and sitting in that chair, and her head is down, and you're watching a flower wilt. It's like the petals of a flower are withering in front of you. And I think there are women who can relate to that, to just feeling wilted, wilted. I was crying. I was crying during a scene like that because I understand what it feels like to have something taken from you by a man, by a man not being able to love you, what that does to your soul. She so desperately wants to be loved. She wants to believe that Morris loves her, that it is real, that it's genuine, it's mutual and true. And this is the first time where she has to confront that her own father doesn't love her. And you can feel her heartbreak and the way it destroys her soul to be confronted with that. That the primary person in your life does not love you or care about you. And I think the cruelty of her father, it makes you wish even more that Morris is good. Like, you want Morris to genuinely love her. You want him to swoop in and to care about her. And when she runs into his arms in that scene after her father, and like she runs into Morris's arms in the rain, she just melts into him. It's so emotional, and he's holding her and they're kissing each other. I was crying. I was just sobbing as I watched this film, because this is a woman so deprived of love, so desperate for it, so starved for it. And she is drinking in this man. She's drinking in that moment of being in his arms. It's like finding water in the desert when he kisses her and holds her and touches her. And if you have not lived it, if you have not lived what Catherine has lived, what I have lived, then you don't understand what that moment is. You don't understand what it is like for her to meet him. And you cannot understand what it was like for me to meet the person that I met. When you live your whole life without it, and then you think maybe you have a chance at it. It's that almost for me that still haunts me. It never went in that direction with my own experience. It never went to that place of like kissing and holding and touching. Thank God it didn't. I think it probably would have killed me if I had been able to have all that and then it was taken away from me. It never got to that point. But just knowing him, just talking to him, having his attention. I still remember when like I was watching The Talented Mr. Ripley recently, the one with Jude Law in it and Gwyneth Paltrow and Matt Damon. And there's such a great quote in that one. Gwyneth Paltrow is talking about the Jude Law character. That's the one, his name's Dickie, and Tom Ripley is obsessed with Dickie. For a while, Dickie had given attention to Tom Ripley, and then he took it away. And there's this scene where Gwyneth Paltrow is talking about Dickie and talking about how, when he pays attention to you, it's like the sun shining on your face. And that's what it felt like when I finally got a taste of that kind of attention, or what I thought was like a mutual connection with somebody, or just feeling a connection to a man. If you haven't lived it, if you haven't lived without it your whole life, then you don't know what it's like when you think that you have it. And so when she's in his arms, it's like nourishment. When you're watching the second time, you know what it's all leading to. You know that it's not real. You know that he doesn't love her. You know that she's going to lose it. And you're just watching this woman be destroyed by these men. You're watching a part of her, or a version of her, being destroyed. And I feel that in myself. I understand her hunger for love. I understand why she wants it to be real with Morris. She wants to run into his arms and for him to make it all better. And she wants to punish her father too by eloping with Morris. And so marrying Morris would be like an act of revenge against her father. And in a way, there are two acts of revenge in the film. There's her attempted elopement with Morris and wanting to punish her father, right? And then there's her rejection of Morris at the end, although the elopement doesn't really happen. So maybe it's more accurate to say that the act of revenge against her father is when he's dying and she refuses to go see him. That's also an act of revenge. And when she's kissing and all of that with Morris and they decide to elope, she makes it very clear that her father will disown her and disinherit her and that she wants nothing to do with her father. This is also with the second viewing how I really locked into like, so Morris knows that night if he runs away with her and gets married, they will not have the full inheritance. And that explains why he doesn't show up with the carriage, doesn't it? It's implied in that scene. If we run away and we do this, my father will never forgive me, and I don't want anything to do with him. And I do believe the elopement with Morris, this is her standing up for herself. And it's her first attempt at truly trying to be free and to break away from her father. I don't believe that she's fully free until the end of the film. When she tries to run away with Morris, I think that is part of it. Is she wants to be free and she thinks that she will be free with him. She doesn't know at the time that he is not the path to her freedom at all. And I think the ending, like I said, is the true freedom because she frees herself from both her father and Morris. And she has to learn you are not going to escape one man, the tyranny or domination of one man, by falling into the arms of another. That is often not what works. When you try to leave a bad family situation and then you run into the arms of another man who doesn't love you, that is not freedom. I would argue that no man is the path to freedom. That is what the film, I think, exposes to us. No man is going to grant you full freedom. And if she had run away with Morris and they had eloped, if he had shown up, that would not have been freedom at all. She would have been walking into a loveless marriage and she would have been used. And the thing is Morris's love is a compensation. And I think that she needs to live in that delusional romantic fantasy for a while. I think we all do. It just has to happen. I'll never forget like somebody telling me after I was trying to recover from my unrequited love, they told me, well, you weren't going to go your whole life and not feel something for somebody, right? Like I tried to suppress desire. I tried to avoid it. I thought that I could just keep it away and wall myself off and never feel anything for anybody because I had been given a script of you look a certain way, you don't fit beauty standards, and so you are not allowed to desire. You're not allowed to fall in love. You are not wanted. You are not cherished. You're not adored. This is not available to you. That's what I was told my whole life. And that was just constantly reinforced. It is still reinforced to a certain extent. As I've told you, it's not happened for me. I am not sought out. I am not viewed in that way, in a romantic way. I can't even conceive of myself in that way, if I'm being honest with you, because it's never happened. I told myself, well, I'm just going to wall this off. I'm going to repress it. I'm not going to go near it. But you can't. And she can't either. She can't not feel something for somebody. And he presented himself to her and showed interest in her and asked her questions and pursued a connection with her. How was she supposed to resist it? It's not reasonable to say, well, she should have just shut off her desire. So she has to have this delusional fantasy for a while. And the end of the film is like her freedom from that fantasy or from fantasy in general. And the fantasy is also that marriage will make you whole. that a man will complete you, right? That the love of a man will validate you and confirm your worth, right? She never had her mother's love. She didn't have her father's love. And Morris is this object that she attaches all of her longing and love and fantasy to. And she's telling Aunt Lavinia as she's waiting for Morris that night, he goes away to get the carriage. And she's telling Aunt Lavinia, he thinks I'm pretty. He wants me. He must take me away. He must love me. He must. And she's almost talking like a child. She's very riled up, but she's talking like a child. He must love me. He must, as though if she just says it enough, then he will. That's not how it works. And she has to learn that. And I had to learn it. Just because you want him to love you, just because you have all kinds of things in common, just because you love him and you care about him and you feel something for him, that does not mean he will give it back. It doesn't mean that he is even capable of giving it back. But she's like, he must, because Morris must love her, right? She says he must. Morris will love me for all those who didn't. Morris must love her because of all the people who didn't. He is the compensation. He's the reward that she's waited for her whole life. He's the reflection, the mirror of her worth, the one who will validate and confirm that she is lovable. That is what this man is to her. I understand it because I've lived it. This man must make up for all of these years that she lived with rejection, all the years she was ignored and unloved. Everything hinges on him coming to her that night and them running away. He is more than himself. This is also what makes unrequited love so difficult to get past, is that you make somebody so powerful. This person must love me. And I felt that. I felt it. I was like, he has to love me back. But he didn't. And Morris doesn't love her. And he does not show up and he does not come back for her. And she just lets out a wail because she knows that she's been lied to, that she's been used. He's not going to get that big inheritance. And so now she's not valuable to him. She's an object that he can discard. She just wails and yells out his name over and over again. Total heartbreak and devastation. And then she walks up those stairs with the suitcases. That image of her with those suitcases says everything that words cannot say. It is an image that is just so searing, absolute desolation and despair. Because when she's walking up that staircase, she's having to walk back to a life that she thought she was going to escape, because that's what Morris represented. He was going to be the love that she never got to have and the life that she dreamed of. And she had hoped when she descended the stairs the night before, or the hours before, she had hoped that she would never have to walk back up those stairs again. She thought she was walking to her new life with a man who loved her and cared about her. And she realizes she's not going to leave that house. She's not going to leave her father. She's not going to leave that bedroom. She's not going to leave that house on Washington Square. It also made me think about the Henry David Thoreau quote about people living these lives of quiet desperation. I'm paraphrasing, of course. We do. We live lives of quiet desperation. And we have these flickers at times where we think something else is possible. Something is stirred in us, a desire. I do think a lot of us just live our lives almost comatose. And then something comes along that jolts us, that stirs us, and it awakens a desire in us for a person, a life, a dream, ultimately for something more. And there is nothing like watching somebody or experiencing it yourself, watching somebody stirred to their depths by longing and desire, and then having that completely extinguished inside of them. And I felt it. That was my experience. It was this moment when I dared to desire something more in my life, something more than my spinster life, my life of grief and loss and pain that I had carried like those suitcases that Catherine is carrying. I had carried that weight for decades. When I met this man, just like when Catherine meets Morris, I thought something more was possible. that a different story could be lived, that somebody finally saw me and loved and could love me and want me and choose me. And it was one of the most devastating experiences of my life, next to the death of my parents. And that is saying a lot. But when that desire gets activated and stirred in you, when you feel that hope and then you watch it be extinguished or you feel it be extinguished, it is devastating. It is annihilating. Morris's rejection of her is an initiation. Like I said, it is her rite of passage. It is the threshold. It is the before and the after that changes her forever. She's crushed, and it will change you forever. It will change you forever. I don't know if I've ever fully recovered from what I went through, how deeply it annihilated me. That's just the truth. I wish I could say differently, but I can't. I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that. There is a Catherine before Morris's abandonment, and there is a Catherine after. She is harder. There is less light in her eyes. Something has died inside her. A version of her has died. And this is not the Catherine we knew at the beginning of the film, our awkward, introverted, shy little baby bird that I want to protect, right? Naive and innocent. Now she's more self possessed. She's going to be wiser. We see it in the scene with her father. He's sick when they came back from the trip. He has gotten sick and he finds out that the engagement has been cut off. And this is a very powerful scene that happens with her father because she's learned that both of these men don't love her. Neither of these men saw her as a human being worthy of love and respect. And she says to him, I can tell you now what you've done. You have cheated me. You thought that any handsome, clever man would be as bored with me as you were. It was not love that made you protect me, it was contempt. Now, her father says that Morris didn't love her, and she says, I know that now, thanks to you. And he says, well, better to know it for 20 to know it now than, 20 years in the future, basically. And she responds, why? I lived with you for 20 years before I found out you didn't love me. I don't know that Morris would have hurt me or starved me for affection more than you did. Since you didn't love me, you should have let someone else try. If I am to buy a man, I would prefer buying Morris. This is a new Catherine. This is not innocent, small, silent Catherine at the beginning of the film. She says, "Go ahead and disinherit me if you want to." Right? He doesn't love her. He's trying to control her. And then she says, "You don't know what I'll do with your money after you die. I might go and, once you're dead, I might go and get Morris, right? I might chase after him and squander all your money on him." She's almost threatening her father. She tells him that she still loves Morris, and then she says, "Does that offend you or humiliate you that I still love him?" And I love how she made the connection between when he said Morris doesn't love you, and she's like, well, you didn't love me either. She lived with her father her whole life and he didn't love her. So if she had married Morris, or if she chased after Morris with her money, she would just be exchanging one loveless man for another. How would her life with Morris have been any different than her life with her father? And there are women who relate to that. There are women who go their whole lives and they're not loved by their fathers and they're not loved by their husbands. A lot of women get into that. They exchange one loveless situation for another, and it's heartbreaking. It's such a brilliant confrontation, such a brilliant way to put it. Like, you don't love me any more than he does. So what does she have to lose with being with him, essentially? I admire her in that moment. I admire her for getting that backbone, right? It's very invigorating and exciting and electrifying to watch this woman say everything that she wants to say, to speak the truth. In a way, she's unleashed. She knows the truth now. And that is what, and I know it's a cliche, the truth will set you free, but she is freed by it in a weird way. She's not going to be the good girl. That's the thing about her. She was the good girl. I was the good girl. I was the people pleaser. I stayed small and quiet and shrank myself, just like Catherine did. Scared to have an opinion, scared to have any needs, scared to be too intense, scared to be too much, scared to be seen. And people walked all over me. And she's not taking it anymore. She has hit her limit in terms of taking abuse, taking neglect, not being cared about by people. She's talking back. She's pushing back. She's finding her voice, and it's an angry voice, maybe even a venomous voice. And sometimes it has to be. If you've been hurt your whole life and pushed down and cut down, particularly by men, maybe you have to go through the anger to get to something else. That is part of the sovereignty, right? Is to get angry when you are treated badly. Her anger is justified. Her harshness is justified. And maybe she is hardened by it. Who wouldn't be? Why wouldn't she be hardened by it? It's normal. And the anger is normal. And the anger is part of it. And yeah, there can be a danger to it. The danger that when the world has treated you harshly or stolen your goodness, that you will be hardened by it, that you will become the thing that has hurt you. That is a real danger. But I also think that sometimes you have to harden up at times or go through a period of that. It doesn't mean that you won't soften again, but sometimes you have to go through the anger. And while I was watching the film, I thought, I understand Catherine from the inside out. Like, I understand her in the depths of my soul. That's the work that I try to do on this podcast, is like, I'm really exploring my experiences and my feelings in the hopes that that resonates with somebody. But I think that we are very complicated people. We're even mysterious to ourselves. Like, how do you go from a shy, naive woman like she is at the beginning, or even like I was at one time, and then you lose your mind over a man? It will always be mysterious to me. I have been inside the madness of it. I've been inside the aching and the hunger and the belief that if this man just sees me and loves me back and chooses me, that everything will be right. I will be restored. I will be healed. And I don't think we can fully explain it, why we even believe that to begin with, when once you're outside of it, it's so ridiculous that you ever believed it. It's so clear he wants her money. It's so clear that he doesn't love her. But when it's you and when you're in it and somebody's saying these things that you've always wanted to hear, or they're saying maybe not the exact things, but they're giving you scraps or giving you crumbs that you're turning into more than what they really are, it can lead to a kind of madness. It doesn't make sense. I don't know if we always make sense to ourselves. And maybe you have to go to the depths of madness over somebody. Maybe it needs to happen at least once in your life, and sometimes it happens multiple times, right? I hate therapy speak online. I hate how we reduce everything to like these really simple concepts and language. It's not who we are as humans. We carry a lifetime of experiences. We have so much churning within us, so much happening inside our minds, so much that motivates us. I felt like this film touched that mysterious aspect of us. Is like when you are overcome by your hunger, you're overcome by desire. Everything in your life is converging at once. That's what I felt in Catherine. Like she's just overwhelmed by everything that she feels. She almost goes through a crisis. She goes through this massive rupture. And if you've lived it, then you can relate to it. And even though she wasn't loved by her father and she could have been with Morris, who wouldn't have loved her, I'm still proud that she didn't choose the delusion. I'm proud that she got out of it. And maybe she had to go to the depths of the madness in order to finally be free of it. It's like, that's like, you have to hit rock bottom to finally come to your senses. That's in a way what's happening to her in the film. She is a woman coming to her senses, waking up from the dream and the fantasy. She has to be disillusioned, and she refuses to go to she refuses to go to her father's bedside as he's dying. She has been fundamentally changed. She is a different woman, but she has to go through these experiences. She has to lose all of her illusions. I'll never forget an interview that Parker J. Palmer did. He was doing this talk with Bell Hooks. I'll never forget when he said something like he was grateful for his disillusionment. It was such an interesting way to frame it. He said there are certain illusions that we should lose, that we have to lose. And that's how I see Catherine, that she has to come into her own. She has to stand up for herself. And it changes her, what she goes through. That's what happened to me, is like I was changed in such deep and fundamental ways. And I guess I had to lose those illusions. right? Like they had to go. I have to strip away more and more of them because no matter how many illusions you lose, there's always your core self who's left. And maybe in a way, these illusions are covering my core self. And I have to keep stripping them away layer by layer until I get to the marrow of who I am, the core of who I am. And I think every woman has to do that. And the thing is, I've lost all these illusions and just like Catherine, but I want to know who I am. I like knowing who I am. And maybe I didn't know who I was in 2019 when I first watched this film and right before I had my own experience with this. I had to learn things. I had to grow up in order to value myself, in order to see that I am worthy of love and care, and to make the decision that I will not settle. And I think Catherine does that too. Like, I will not settle for fake love. I will not settle for a lie. And if it means I'm alone, that's what it means. Because that's the thing, is like she chooses to stay alone. She has to live those standards, live those values in a way. I think Catherine, like, to me, she's a heroine. She's an idol. Like, I love this woman. She respects herself. She is a woman to admire. She is a woman to look up to. And she shows us how important it is to walk away, to walk away. And when she gets to have that confrontation with him at the end, I mean, this is still one of the most powerful endings because she comes face to face with this man again. She already knows who he is. He's already shown who he is. He's already left her once. She gave him the benefit of the doubt that first night. She loved him and cared about him, and he abandoned her. He's already shown exactly who he is, and she is standing face to face with him. And he lies to her. He lies to her, says that he was protecting her. He did it to help her. He didn't want her to be disinherited by her father, just feeding her more lies. But she's wiser now. She's stronger now. And she knows, and she has to make a choice. What's so fascinating about this ending is that she finally gets a choice. She gets to choose if she wants to be with this man or not. She has all the information that she needs. She is making a fully informed choice, whereas before she felt more desperate. Now she has the power because she has the money. She can take care of herself whether she has a husband or not. And the tables have turned. He's the desperate one now. He's the desperate one. He's back in town and he looks different. He has a mustache. He kind of looks a little bit thinner, right? He's not the pretty boy. He doesn't have the shine that he had. He didn't have the glow that he had before. He looks more haggard. At least that's the way I saw him. Something very desperate about it. And how many people get to have this? Like, this is the fantasy when somebody leaves you or ghosts you or abandons you. There's that fantasy that you get to confront them or you get to turn the tables. You get to take back your power in some way, right? And she fakes it and tells him, yeah, let's get married. And he believes he's going to get the house and all of it. And you can tell when he's looking at the house how impressed he is with it. He thinks they're going to get married that night. He leaves for a little while. And while he is gone, I love this. Oh, it's still just one of the greatest endings in classic Hollywood for me personally. She closes the drapes of the windows. She's walking around closing the drapes, goes back to her embroidery, and tells Aunt Lavinia, he's gotten greedy. First, he wanted her money, and now he also wants her love, right? And Aunt Lavinia tells her, you're cruel. She accuses her of being very cruel, and Catherine says, yes, I can be cruel. I have been taught by masters. I love that. I have been taught by masters. She is only giving what she has been given. And that is all that men like Morris really deserve. And this is revenge. It's very cathartic as well to watch this film, to watch a woman get this kind of revenge on a man who hurt her. And like I said, there were two acts of revenge, not going to her father's deathbed, and then what she does to Morris at the end, making him think they're going to get married and he's going to have this house. He probably has nothing at this point. He thinks he's going to live very well with Catherine in Washington Square, but she rejects him. And we don't all get to do that. Most of us will never get to do that. She refuses to buy love. She refuses to live a lie. And we can hear the carriage coming down the street, clopping down the road, the carriage that she was waiting for years ago. And he's finally there on the doorstep, wanting to marry her. Exactly what she wanted. The scenario has now replayed. It's almost like this reparative experience. And I also think it's a great reminder that sometimes the thing we think we won't, we are really being protected from it. We are being spared. I love that Jenny Holzer truism. I still think it's one of the best things ever. And one of the truest, protect me from what I won't. It's true. Protect me from what I won't. Years before, this is what she had wanted. She wanted this man to be in the carriage, to come and take her away from her father, and to love her. She wanted to escape that house, escape her father, but she was not going to be able to escape her father through another man, through a man who didn't love her. So now that he's at the door, pounding on the door, she tells Mariah, her housekeeper, she says, bolt the door. Oh, I love it. I love the power of this ending. She finishes her embroidery. She snips that last thread. It is one of the most electrifying, invigorating final scenes that I have ever witnessed. I loved it the first time. I loved it even more the second time. This woman has completely come into her own. She has chosen truth and reality, and she is choosing a life that honors her. She is rejecting illusion and fantasy and lies, and she is rejecting this man who lied to her face multiple times, a man who manipulated her, a man who lied to her. I think we know what he would have done in that marriage. He would have cheated on her. I'm sure he would have spent the money. I'm sure he would have done all kinds of things. It would not have been a happy life for her. It would not have been a life of love because he is not the man that she believed that he was. He's not the fantasy. And the thing is that she's choosing to be alone because there is not another man to choose. She will be alone. She knows that. I mean, we don't know if she would meet somebody eventually, but that's a big deal in the mid 1800s for a woman. When you were expected to get married, to have children, massive social pressure to do that. She chooses a life of singlehood, of sovereignty, of being alone. And as he is banging on that door, instead of holding her suitcases like she did before, she ascends the staircase holding a light. It looks like it's some kind of lamp, right? She's holding a lamp. That's her triumph. And we see the smile on her face. Instead of those heavy suitcases, she's carrying a light. She's free. And we see her smile. I don't see a woman who's bitter and angry. I see a woman who has accessed her autonomy and her sovereignty, a woman who has honored herself and respected herself. And I'm fascinated by that lamp, right? Like the light of it, the illumination, clarity, seeing the reality of this man, being enlightened. She is fully self actualized. By the end of this film, she has gone from illusion to reality. She has learned something about herself. She has changed, and she has chosen that over what might have been easier, what might have been more acceptable to society, which is to live the lie, to put up with him, to marry him and let him cheat, let him do whatever he wants to do. But at least you can say you're married and that you have a man and that you were chosen. She goes from innocence to experience, but she's not losing, is she? I don't think she's losing. Or she's not losing anything that shouldn't be lost. Perhaps that's a better way to put it. This is a full transformation. And I've lived it myself. There is a loss of innocence, a loss of naivete. Maybe I'm not as open as I once was. I see the world in a different way. Maybe sometimes I see it in a harsh way. But what is the cost of continuing with the illusions? What is the cost of Catherine staying innocent and naive? So instead of her initiation happening through being with a man, because that's what tends to happen for a lot of women, like I said earlier, getting married, having sex, being in a relationship. Instead, her initiation and her growth and her self actualization happens through not just being rejected by a man, but rejecting him back in return, walking away from that man. That's when I feel that she is fully self actualized, is when she makes the choice to cut him off, to walk away from him when she could have had him. It would have been false, but she still could have had him. This is how she comes to know herself most fully, not through marriage, not through a relationship, but through belonging to herself, not belonging to a man, not allowing a man to have access to her anymore, not getting in an unfulfilling and loveless marriage. She refuses. She rejects it. She is self actualized through rejecting him and choosing herself. I know that's a very cliche phrase to say choosing yourself. I know. I don't have like better language for it in this moment. She comes to know herself more deeply and to respect herself enough to leave a man and to reject him. And he thought that he could do it. He thought that he could have her. He thought that he could get away with her, that she wasn't even a human being. She takes back her humanity. She takes back her personhood. There's something very radical about this ending, isn't there? He doesn't care about her. He doesn't love her. He's the fortune hunter, and her father was right. Her father was right, and she finally sees through it. She couldn't see through it before, but now she does. And she refuses to spend 20 more years with a man who doesn't love her. This ending is very radical because she's saying, I will not settle for this. This is beneath me. And it's so interesting that she ascends the stairs. She's going up. She's leaving something behind that is beneath her. And she is ascending. She's going somewhere higher. But there was so much pain in the process. There was so much suffering to get to that point. But she says, I am not going to settle for a lie. I'm not going to settle for a substitute for love or counterfeit love rather than the real thing. And I am not going to settle for someone who treats me like my father did. And I think there's something very radical and dignified about that. Very, very powerful. She will not be diminished. She will not live a counterfeit life or a diminished life. She will live for herself. She will live for herself. And it's one of the most powerful things I've ever witnessed. And I felt it in my soul. I felt that transformation. She is choosing her own path, and not a lot of women choose that path, right? She is authoring a different story, and she is living for herself and respecting and honoring herself. And she is a model and an example to all women when she walks away from that man. And I think many women can relate to that moment of walking away from something harmful, walking away from someone who does not love you or care about you. I admire her. I admire the dignity of it and the strength of it to walk away and to walk toward a life that is more uncertain, more unknown, maybe scarier, less conventional, but to choose it nonetheless, to fully choose it. So, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, keep watching great films.